Hello everyone, welcome back to the current episode of Sippin with Stephen. Those who are loyal viewers will recognize this nice young lady to my right who is here. She is Haley Hicky, and she is the brand ambassador for Mary Dowling. Now, some of you may be familiar with Mary Dowling, some may not. And for those who are not, we are going to fix that today. These three lovely products out front, but you know, Haley, welcome first and foremost.
Thank you for having me.
But the thing I want to do is, since Mary Dowling was indeed an historical person, and she is mentioned prominently in our Spirit of Kentucky bourbon exhibit at the Fraser, if you would give the Sippin' with Stephen viewers a kind of brief overview of her importance in the whole bourbon industry and why your folks decided to make a brand name or name a brand after her.
Okay, absolutely, and thanks again for having me.
My pleasure.
So Mary Dowling was just an amazing woman, and had as you mentioned, she had a huge part in the bourbon industry, but no one has really talked about her story up until the last year or two, at least that I have heard, and I've been in the industry for about 15 years. But she was just a force of nature. Mary and her husband John were Irish immigrants, and they owned a distillery in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. And she had a great business acumen, but he was running things
Because of the time.
Because of the time.
And she was a female
lady.
lady.
Yes, absolutely. So when he passed away in 1903 and left Mary with 8 children, I'm sure she was thinking, like, I've got to feed my family, keep my family together. So she took over their family distillery called Waterfill and Fraser, of course.
Okay.
And she just became very, very successful. In fact, one of the most successful people, not just women, in the state of Kentucky and in the United States. And she did so much for the bourbon industry, for the state of Kentucky, and she did a ton of charitable acts too. So she was wonderful. But as you mentioned, she was a woman in a man's world, because women did not own businesses back then. They definitely didn't own a business making bourbon. So she was up against a bunch of different obstacles. For example, there was a distillery fire, and she went to her bank to get a loan to help rebuild, and the bank would not give her a loan because she didn't have a man that could co-sign for her. So do you know what she did?
No, but I'm just dying to find out. What did she do, Haley?
She chartered her own bank, and they wouldn't let her sit on the board of it, unfortunately. But she started her own bank. So,
very cool.
That's pretty baller. Let's be serious.
Well, no, and as we look at this, I want to tie something in, and I'm, one of the products that you have that is absolutely fantastic is your Mary Dowling bourbon finished in a tequila cask.
Yes.
And there is a reason that you all chose tequila casks as opposed to other spirit casks. And if you could enumerate on that as to why there's a significance of a tequila cask maybe being south of the border and Mary Dowling going that way to kind of open her own distillery?
Yes. You're exactly right. So this beautiful bottle right here with the blue label is our high rye bourbon. It's 25% malted rye, 70% corn, and it is 4-year aged bourbon, 4-year plus, of course, aged bourbon. And then we finished it for 3 to 6 months in a reposado tequila barrel. And as you mentioned, that is because when Mary couldn't get her distillery grandfathered in during Prohibition to continue producing, she, with the help of her then older sons and Joseph Beam, before the Beams had their own distillery, they took her distillery part and moved it down to Juarez, Mexico. And she lived the last decade of her life in El Paso and went across the border to Juarez to run the business down there. And in fact, her family stayed down there producing bourbon until 1964, when the U.S. wrote them a letter asking to make bourbon a U.S. only product.
And that was, May the 4th of 1964 is when the federal legislation was passed that made bourbon a unique product of the United States.
Yes, and so because of that, we are calling her the mother of bourbon.
Absolutely. And, I find that very interesting that you can tie the historical aspects to that, because right now, what is the biggest segment of the bourbon industry is finished products. And, people have sherry, they have all kinds of different things, port that are finished in,
Yes.
rum barrels. But the fact that you all are using tequila that ties into the history of Mary Dowling is not only appropriate, but a great homage to one of the truly inspiring ladies and people, not just ladies, but of bourbon, who was fighting the fight 100 years before
Right.
Things could be on a somewhat equitable basis.
Yes, she was definitely ahead of her time. And, you know, I haven't mentioned it yet, but these products are all from the founder of Rabbit Hole Distillery. And our founder, Kaveh, and his wife, Heather, heard Mary Dowling's story, and Heather really nudged him to use her name and produce a bourbon in her honor. So Heather is getting more involved in the industry along with Kaveh. And so we have some great women who are talking about her.
What a great story, and that is so much what bourbon is.
Yes.
I mean, product,
Yes.
you got to have a good product, but the story behind that.
Yes.
It just makes it, which is really interesting, because before we came on to film, you were telling me about some exciting happenings that could be happening in 2025 for Mary Dowling in the Nulu area. Would you like to tell the viewers about
I would love to tell.
these happenings?
Yes, I would love to tell. So first of all, the story, Mary Dowling's story, is so enormous, and there's so much to tell, that we have been working with her family, and we are releasing a book in the spring. So more information on that coming soon. We hope to tie in the Fraser and your book club and your amazing events team to hopefully do something here.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yes. And we are also excited because we plan to open a tasting room on the same block as the Rabbit Hole Distillery on East Jefferson and down in, as you mentioned, in Nulu.
Which is just an area that's just popping.
Yes.
And from restaurants to distilleries to breweries, shopping. It is, when people come in from out of town, it's one of the areas that people, if they don't want to stay there, they certainly want to visit there.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic place. We have a ton of wonderful partners down there. You almost can't walk into a bar or restaurant without seeing our products. So it's a great place to come and taste. And in saying that, I also want to give a shout out to the Fraser, because the Fraser Museum gift store was one of the first retail locations to bring in our products. And
they also, on a periodic basis, I'm going to toot your horn on this, and Mindy Johnson, our Fraser manager of the museum store, periodically, if it is not lucky enough to have Haley here doing it, there is someone from Mary Dowling that is sampling these products, along with a few other things, that your mash and mallow product, that people can come in, get a sample of it, and then head out to Liquor Barn or what of their favorite retailer and purchase the product. I will give a personal plug, because I don't have the red wheat, but the other two products, the double oaked and the tequila finish, are on my personal bar, and everyone who's come in and have tried it has just raved about it. So they love not only the product, but they love the history, they love the background, and the whole reason people go on the Bourbon Trail is to learn
Yes.
information. Not just, you can drink whiskey or bourbon in your basement anytime,
Yeah.
but that's the great experience.
well, thank you for saying that, because these are like my babies, and you're bragging on my babies. So
Well,
I'm so glad you love them, and that anybody who tastes them at your house.
You
enjoys them too.
you know enough that if I didn't, I would just keep my mouth shut. And I'm not. These are things that I taste and I recommend all the time.
Yes.
And when you do that, you like to think you build up a little credibility. Now, people still have their own palates, and not everybody likes everything.
Right.
But they all try it with an open mind, I should say.
Well, and I was going to say, and you know your bourbon, so to brag on them is,
Well, I know the people in the industry and my favorite Fraser alum. So as we go forward, why don't we do this?
Okay.
I see that there is some nice amber looking liquid in these very fancy Mary Dowling tasting glasses.
These
did you have
beautiful little
a
tasting
hand in
glasses.
these? I'm going to say yes.
I did, and I love them, and I they're cool enough that a guy can hold them, but I love that they have a little bit of a feminine touch.
Cool enough for this guy to touch the handle, and our cameramen, who are both great bourbon aficionados as well.
Yes.
What we will do now then is, we're in Sippin' with Stephen tradition. Well, before we do our toast, if you could do just a little bit of an overview of your double oak product and also your new product, the red winter wheat, and then we will have a sampling of the red winter wheat and sail this episode off to where everything is good in the world.
Perfect. So thank you. Yeah, as you mentioned, so this one it's Kentucky winter wheat, and it's brand new. We just launched it about a month ago. So it's 25% wheat, 65% corn, 10% malted barley. This one is 91 proof.
Okay.
This we released this for a couple different reasons because of the popularity of this one, but this one is a cask strength double oak.
Right.
So it is 125 proof. Anywhere from like 115 to 125 depending on which batch you get.
Sure.
And then again, it's double oak. So all of our batches at Rabbit Hole are 15 barrels or less, so they are truly small batch. And then all of our barrels come from Kelvin Cooperage, which is a fantastic cooperage. It's here in town, mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to go over and see, and they build all of the barrels by hand. Then they toast the barrels for about 10 minutes using a wood-burning fire, mm-hmm. and then char them for an additional 2. That's on the standard number 3 char barrel. So that makes
thank you for sharing that process.
Difference.
It makes all the difference, and a lot of people who get deep into bourbon will really appreciate that. And
huge difference.
And also, so then that brings us to the wheated product,
yes.
which is going to be a little bit on the sweeter side, perhaps?
Mm-hmm. It is.
So you got high rye and high wheat.
Yes, so high rye and then these wheated products. And again, the toasting of the barrel just really, even though it's the cask strength is a really big, bold bourbon, because it is wheated and it's soft enough that you can enjoy it every day. But this one is more of our everyday. Put it in a cocktail,
Yeah. Well, that is terrific. Before we do our toast real quick, mm-hmm. when you're out and about, I know you're not in all 50 states, but you're in a large number of the 50 states. I would encourage viewers to look for these bottles in their local retailer. If they don't see them on the shelf, talk to their bourbon person there and ask if they have Mary Dowling. If not, to
it's a
request
great idea.
it. And tell them that Haley said they should do it, and that Stephen is encouraging it as well.
Yes.
So these are what we're going to do. We're going to promote these 3 products. Now, what we're going to do in Sippin' with Stephen tradition, we're going to raise our glass, and we're going to toast to the memory of Mary Dowling, to the distillery of Mary Dowling, the mother of bourbon, mm-hmm. to the Fraser History Museum, and to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We're going to try this. We're going to give you our opinion. But most of the thing, as always, we're going to say enjoy your trip on the trail. And as we head towards the holidays, happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Cheers.
Let's give this a try. Ooh, that is smooth. Very, very nice. As you mentioned, what I would call a nice everyday sipper. Mm-hmm. You could have this just with 1 cube or have it neat, put it in a cocktail, very flexible spirit.
Yeah.
Cannot encourage it enough. And if you can find these feminine yet masculine tasting glasses, then you've really hit the mother lode. Once again, Haley, thank you for coming here. As I mentioned, she is our favorite Fraser alum, and we are so happy that you are here promoting what you do at your great products from Mary Dowling here at the Fraser.
Yes,
again, cheers.
Thank you. Come see me. We're here at least twice a month doing the demos, and thank you very much for having me.
It is my pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.